Hello, my name is Allison Seekman, and today's date is Tuesday, November 8th, 2011. I'm interviewing Specialist Jacob Shields at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, about his life and military service. How are you this morning?
Good, how about you?
Good. Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in 1986 in Iron Mountain, Michigan.
Did you grow up there?
I did. Born and raised.
Born and raised. How was it growing up in Michigan?
Not bad. Rough winters at first. I mean, they've calmed down a lot more since, when I was younger, but it's been fun.
What was your family like?
Very loving. We were always really close between my mom, my grandma, and my uncles and everything. We were always, every winter, we'd always get together. We always made sure we got family outings, even in the summertime, and made sure we always spent family time together and try to make the most of it. So.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older sister and an older brother and a younger brother.
So 3 siblings then?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Did you graduate from high school?
I did, right from Iron Mountain.
What was your high school experience like?
It was fun. A lot of good kids that I went to school with. Kind of slacked off after my freshman year, more or less, in high school, but spent a lot of time around our technology departments and everything, helping teach classes and taking more advanced classes. Throughout my high school career, I kind of worked with them to make sure the students kind of understood more technology that was upcoming, since I had the background already in that, and then just took all my base classes, and also took part in jazz band on the side, and then also performed with our marching band throughout high school. So.
What instrument did you play?
Clarinet, bass clarinet, tenor sax.
What kind of teenager were you?
I was actually pretty well behaved. I was kind of calm. I stayed home quite a bit. Got into video gaming quite a bit, so I was usually home on most nights playing video games or occasionally out in the woods. So kind of relaxed.
What's your family like now? Are you married or in a long-term relationship?
Yep. I do have a girlfriend, but possibility of going pretty far with that. Other than that, I mean, still really close to the family. I mean, it's a little harder because now that I'm down at Fort Leonard Wood, I don't get to see them as often, but I do try to make a trip home usually once or twice a year to go and see them and spend time. And usually when I'm home, it's a lot of family time. Not so much going out and doing whatever I want. It's try to focus on the family. So.
Can I ask, when did you first join the military?
The first time was in 2004. February 2004, I had signed my contract to leave in September 2004, and got medically discharged in November 2004 from Fort Benning, Georgia, on re-injury on my wrist. So.
What were your motivations or reasons for first joining?
A lot of it came from early childhood. My whole family has a military background. I had an uncle that just retired from 20 years in the Air Force right as I had left this time around, and kind of watching Top Gun when I was younger kind of got me hooked. I was like, I'm going to be that fighter pilot, and granted I'm not, but yeah, it kind of drew me in and kind of inspired me a little bit.
What did your family think about you joining?
My mom was definitely very open to it. All my uncles were very supportive. They just wanted to make sure I made the right choice on where I was going, depending on the branch and everything, whether it was, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, or even National Guard or anything. They wanted to make sure I was well taken care of and made the right choice.
You said your uncles were in the Air Force. How did they feel about you joining the Army instead of the Air Force?
My uncle tried to talk me out of it. He kind of tried to talk me into the Air Force, but one of my other uncles was in the Army, so I mean, he kind of understood, and he just wanted to make sure that I was making the choices that I wanted to make, and it wasn't that I was being pressured by a recruiter or anything to join, the Army versus any other branch. He wanted to make sure, I knew I understood everything that all the different branches had to offer me. So he made sure I was taken care of.
Did they give you any advice
He
about
did.
joining the military?
He did. Biggest was probably make sure I get what I want out of the deal. And if I didn't feel satisfied with what I wanted, I could always, turn and walk the other way and come back another day. And it worked quite well for me. I mean, I got lucky when I came in. I always got what I wanted out of the deal. So, I mean, it's not like I really had to fight for it or anything. So they were pretty open to taking care of me.
Before you joined, did you think about your possibility of ending up in combat situations?
I did. September 11th is what really made that a lot more clear. I mean, it wasn't, prior to September 11th, it was more of a peacetime mission. So, yeah, there was the possibility that we could end up somewhere, but minimal. And then once September 11th hit, it was kind of the realization, hey, we're going to go to war, and, I'm going to go fight the good fight, and who knows what happens from there. And I was pretty open-minded about it. I mean, I had a lot of people that I had talked to that were previously deployed, and they were very helpful when it came to it.
Would you say September 11th might have been a motivating factor as well?
A little bit more so than previous, just because I looked at it as prior to 9/11. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go into the military, might make it a career or whatever, it'd be a good experience. And then after September 11th happened, it was kind of now I kind of want to, get payback for what they did to us. So I want to, go take care of my country and make sure that they're, safe and sound at home instead of having to worry about such things happening again.
How old were you when 9/11 happened?
I was 2001, 15. 15 when it happened. I was sitting in my sophomore government class when we turned the TVs on and saw the first tower was hit. And then the rest of the day we watched all the way through the day, the news, watched the second plane hit, and so we watched the whole events unfold. So,
what were your thoughts during that time?
kind of hard to take it all in at first because it was so surreal. I mean, you're kind of like, you're watching these towers get hit and you're like, is it really happening? Or, or am I just imagining this? And it took most of the day probably to set in, and it was kind of a realization once it did that we just got attacked and a lot of people died.
After you were medically discharged, when did you rejoin?
It would have been, I started the process again in January 2008. It was kind of a longer process to get back in due to the medical, but I was cleared through multiple different doctors to come back in, and then I completely signed the contract in March of 2008 and left it towards the end of April 2008.
All right. When you first came in, did you do some basic training?
I did.
Where was that at?
In 04 or 08?
Both.
Both. 04 it was down at Fort Benning, Georgia, is where I started. And then in 2008 I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for all my basic training and AIT. Because it was a one-station unit training. Since I chose military police, they do it in one location. They don't transfer us to another location after we do basic training. So.
How long was your basic training?
Basic training was 9 weeks, and then followed by 10 weeks AIT. So I was gone for about 19, 20 weeks total.
What was the hardest thing you remember about basic?
Probably the initial adjustment, going from being a civilian to having all your freedoms. Being able to go out. You're done with work at 5 o'clock and go out and do whatever you want. Go out and eat. Go hang out with your friends, family, whatever, and then you're getting bossed around. You have drill sergeants training you, and you have to be here, and in this uniform or this uniform, and kind of just the adjustment to that lifestyle was a little bit interesting. I mean, I kind of knew what to expect since I was in originally in 04 and came in this time, so it wasn't so hard in 08, but in 04 it was kind of a big adjustment going, well, not a civilian anymore. I'm military. You know, it's a whole different lifestyle. So.
In 2004, what was your earliest memory of that initial shock? What happened?
Probably that first night that I got off the bus after the airport. Arrived at Fort Benning, and it was nighttime, and there was a drill sergeant standing in the door, and you could just see his silhouette, and he was big. Seeing him, it was kind of like, well, I'm really here, and he kind of put us in line pretty quick. So, but it was definitely fun.
What did he say to you guys as soon as you got off that bus?
He kind of broke us in and brought us into the policies and how things were going to work. He explained to us, you know, position of attention, parade rest, at ease, the basic, you know, different ways that we stand, depending on if we're in a formation or we're talking to like a non-commissioned officer or anybody above us. You know, you give them the respect, and whether you're standing at parade rest or attention, if it's an officer. He kind of taught us a little bit about that at first, and they gave us an integration into Fort Benning and what was going to happen over the time before we initially went downrange to basic training. So,
what were you feeling at that time?
I was kind of shocked, a little worried too, because I was only 18 at the time, so you know it was kind of all new to me and kind of taking it in, and it was a new feeling.
Was there anything particular that you enjoyed about basic training?
Yeah, I would say definitely the friendships that I made, the camaraderie between everybody, how everybody worked as a team. I mean, because we came from different locations all across the United States, different backgrounds, everything, and we all just fit in so well in the end. It was like an instant transformation, and hey, we've got to work as a team. You know, it's the way it has to be. You know, it's the military way, and we just instantly transformed and became a big family, more or less.
Are there any particular memories or stories that stand out?
From 04, not really, because it was so long ago. 08 is probably a lot of it's once we started going out to the field and doing our field exercises and training out there. We spent a lot of time working together. Anywhere from when we initially set up the camp to, you know, putting up tents and everything, and especially because it was raining that first time that we went out to the field, and it was kind of a shocker because we had to work quick and fast to get the tents up, so that way, you know, we weren't out in the rain all day, and everybody came together, and as soon as one tent was up, everybody shifted over to the next couple tents and made sure everything got up quick, because we were making sure everybody was taken care of. It wasn't, you know, we got our tent up and we started relaxing. It was go help the next person and get them in quicker too. So, I mean, we took care of everybody. It didn't matter whether they were with us or, you know, they were just a part of the company training with us. We made sure everybody was taken care of.
Did you find out anything about yourself during basic that surprised you?
Yes. It showed me that I was able to push a lot harder and farther than I thought. I didn't imagine that I'd be able to accomplish a lot of it. I mean, I knew I'd learn how to do it, but some of it was mentally challenging, and being able to take over and accomplish that was definitely a good feat. I mean, anywhere from the team building to, you know, PT, which never really did much on the outside, and then getting into that, and you really learn that you can do a lot more than you actually thought you could. So. Do
you still stay in touch with some of your buddies from basic training?
I do. There's a few of them that we keep in touch with quite regularly. One of them's from Ohio. I keep in touch with her quite frequently, and then I'm actually stationed with a couple guys from basic training right at Fort Leonard Wood. So.
Did basic change you as a person, or your mindset, or your outlook on life?
A little bit. It made me a lot more professional than what I was. I mean, I'd come from a corporation prior to, so I mean, I was in a professional background, but it wasn't to what the military is. The military is a lot more professional than on the outside, in my opinion. So I mean, I was a lot more, you know, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. You know, a lot of that I might not have done on the outside, and I was a lot more respectful. I think after being gone through basic training and AIT, it kind of changed that whole outlook on, yeah, they might be older and they might not know as much, but they're still older, and you know they may have that job position above me, and I need to respect that, and that's kind of how it works. So,
what advice would you give to someone about to go, say, basic training tomorrow?
Enjoy it. I mean, it goes quick. It really does. It seems 9 weeks seems like a lot. It really does, but it's definitely a very good time. It's really what you make of it. I mean, if you don't make it fun, it's not going to be fun. If you make it fun, you're going to have a blast, and you're gonna make some great memories, you know, with everybody that you're there with, and try to keep in touch with at least a few of them, especially the close friendships that you build over that time. It's always good to stay in touch with them because no matter what, they'll always be there for you. So,
can you tell me what your current MOS is?
I am a military police soldier.
And what company do you belong to?
I belong to the 512th Military Police Company.
In the 512th, is there a nickname?
Yes, we are called the Titans.
How'd that company get that nickname?
I believe we actually all came to the agreement on Titans. We had a bunch of different names initially when we stood the company up in 2008, because I got there right before we'd stood the 512th up, and we threw a bunch of different names out, and we ended up choosing Titans in the end for the name. It's kind of the one everybody stuck with.
So since that initiation of choosing the Titans as your nickname, what does it mean to be a Titan now?
It's actually quite respectful. I mean, the 512th really has a long-standing history all the way back to Korea. So, I mean, looking at the history of the 512th, it's actually a pretty respectable company to be part of. And looking at everything that we've done over the course of the last 3 years that the company's been around since we stood it up, we took it from nothing, you know, to having just our guide on to building it and building the soldiers to a full cohesive team, you know, anywhere from as low as the actual teams to squads to platoons to the entire company to make sure everybody worked together. And we take a lot of pride in that. I mean, we really do. So,
would you say the nickname promotes a kind of bond or spirit to the men and women in the company?
Yes. Yes. I mean, each platoon in the company has their own name as well, but overall, collectively, yeah, I'd say Titans really kind of just draws us all together.
The Big Run 1 has a motto: no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. How do you interpret or incorporate this motto into your service?
I mean, it's really true. I mean, the motto really, really does stand true. Anything, you can overcome anything. It's a matter of putting your mind to it. Physically, your body will always be there. It's really what your mind comes to. If you think you can't do it, then the odds are you can't. If you put your mind straight to it and you're dead set on making sure the mission gets complete, whether it's as small as, you know, working on a vehicle or, you know, hey, we're about to go into combat and, you know, we need to overrun this position or whatever. I mean, if you put your mind to it, you're able to do it. And a lot of times we put the mission first. I mean, the downtime's nice, you know, getting done at 5 o'clock and going home and relaxing. But there's times where it just doesn't happen because we have so much that we need to get done. You know, all the vehicles need to get fixed, or our battalion might give us last minute tasking on something that needs to get turned in, and we have to prep the equipment for turn in, or, you know, we need names for this or names for that, and we kind of make sure the mission's always completed by the end of the day for that day. So,
you were recently deployed. Can we talk about that?
yes.
What time frame were you deployed?
I deployed in February 2010 through February 2011.
Where was that at?
We were deployed to Iraq. Initially, the entire company was up in Kirkuk, up in northern Iraq. And then about 4 months later, we split and sent the company across northern Iraq into Cobb Spiker, and then also Fob Warhorse down in the Diyala province. And then eventually we brought the guys from Spiker down to Warhorse and rejoined about half the company together.
Did you have any expectations before your deployment about Iraq or the people in general?
Not really. I mean, we kind of went into it open-minded. We didn't really know 100% what to expect. I mean, you get the news reports, and we started kind of seeing what was going on downrange. So, I mean, we kind of had an idea of how it was going to be. But, I mean, to go in there, you know, with a dead set mind, it's not going to be beneficial to you at all, or the mission. I mean, you have to go in there open-minded because things change daily. I mean, you know, you could hear one minute that, you know, the Iraqis are mean, and then you get there and all of a sudden, you know, it's not what you heard. I mean, they're extremely nice. I mean, so we knew living conditions weren't going to be, you know, top-notch. We expected that. I mean, so there was some stuff that we kind of knew prior to going over there, but as far as working with the population, we had a pretty open mind. So.
What was your initial mission?
Once we got over there was the company as a whole was working with the Iraqi police, training them, making sure they are able to complete their mission.
And what was that mission?
Secure and protect Iraq. I mean, the cities and anything a law enforcement mission would entail, you know, from patrolling the streets to crime, making sure that doesn't happen, or trying to deter it. You know, that's a lot of the stuff that we kind of focused on. So.
How did you guys teach the Iraqi police different methods of, you said, patrolling, and you also mentioned like searching out criminals and such?
Right. Once we split, that's when it really got a little more in depth. Because I mean, we were working with the Iraqi police a little bit initially when we were there, but it's really once we started splitting off, that's when we started standing up a lot more into working with the Iraqi police. First Platoon, who I went out with quite a few times prior to leaving Fob Warrior, stood up a joint investigative team in northern Iraq, one of the first of its kind up in northern Iraq, and it was called the Kirkuk Police Organized Crime Unit, and they focused more on the organized crime up in Kirkuk, and they spent a lot of time learning how the Iraqis do it, the detectives there. We went to different classes. We went to the Kirkuk Training Center right outside of Fob Warrior, and sat in on their classes, basically learn how they did things, and then what we can do to try to maybe help them improve. You know, different techniques. You know, they might be, you know, contaminating a crime scene and not really realizing it. You know, just how to walk in a crime scene. You know, different things to look for. And so once they went through the training, they started going out to different calls and actually working with the Iraqi police on actual calls, and showed them different ways to collect evidence, or, well, maybe the shot came from over here, or, you know, maybe the control man for an IED was over in this location, or, you know, this piece of evidence, you need to kind of scatter out different areas and check for different evidence in different locations. And then down in Fob Warhorse, my second platoon guys, they they took over a police academy for the Iraqi police, and they spent a lot of time training Iraqi police on Fob. It was an Iraqi-led mission at that point, but we kind of helped them with it and assisted any of the Iraqi police trainers to kind of build on what they were already teaching, and showed them different methods to search individuals or what to look for when they were out on patrol in their respective areas. So it was fun.
What kind of differences are there between the Iraqi policing methods and the American policing methods?
A lot. I mean, we're a lot more advanced over here in America. We really are. We've got the technology. I mean, everybody's fingerprinted. You know, so I mean, it's easy to identify somebody here a lot more. Like, if somebody was to, shoot somebody or whatever and they left the weapon, it's a lot easier to identify somebody here by pulling a fingerprint than it is over in Iraq, because they don't have necessarily the technology that we do, that you can run a fingerprint and very easily get a match. Whereas there, you kind of have to get witness input and see exactly what they may have saw and get a description of the subject. And they're working on building it. They really are, and they're coming a long way. And they've changed quite a bit from where they were, but it's still very new to them to try and tackle such things.
How have they tried to overcome the obstacle of not being as advanced in technology as us?
They use a lot of witness accounts. They're actually starting to use computers a lot more, also to build the communication between the different stations. That was one of the biggest things that I'd noticed when going into different Iraqi police stations, was that they were trying to get more computers, and they were trying to learn how to use them, and the best way for them to communicate through different Iraqi police stations, to basically work together, so that way in the event something happens here, but maybe the citizen is from a different district, they can work with the other Iraqi police locations to try and build it, so that way they can build the case and kind of look for that individual, so they can try and apprehend him there. But I mean, fingerprinting, they're learning, they've learned, but it's, like I said, it's got quite a ways to go still for them to kind of catch up to where we are.
After they apprehend a suspect, what kind of justice system is there in Iraq right now?
That's they've tried to model it quite a bit. I think after the U.S. system, where they try to provide a fair trial. So I mean, everybody over there starts seeing a judge. Yeah, they might be confined for a short time, but they do try to get them to see a judge to actually review the case and determine whether or not they're guilty. So it's very similar to how things are done here in the United States.
Do you think the system they have right now is working?
For them, I believe it is. I mean, everybody's going to have their own way. I mean, each location it's going to be dependent upon what works best for them. I mean, you can't force something on somebody if it's not going to work. I mean, everybody's got their own way of life and their own way to do things. So I mean, you can try to influence it a little bit and try to give them advice and maybe try to help them build on their ways of doing it. And that's really the best you can do. So,
besides working with the Iraqi police, it says in your bio that you are a communications officer, have dealt with communications.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yep. I was initially brought over before we deployed to manage all of our computer systems over there. They wanted somebody who was going to be pretty reliable and knew computers in and out, so they recruited me over to work in our communications section. And initially that's all I did when we were first there, and then I started kind of stepping in a little bit, helping out the rest of my communications guys. We had 5 of us total over there, and they dealt with all the tactical communications that were used out in sector, for radio communications, or our Blue Force tracker, which was basically a big GPS system that allowed for text messaging. Pretty interesting little system. And then to when Operation New Dawn was getting ready to kick off in September, we had to send all those guys home for early redeployers, because with the drawdown and everything for Operation New Dawn, we didn't need necessarily non-essential personnel. We wanted the MPs to stay, and being I was an MP and I was already in that field, they were able to keep me over there. And then I took over the communication shop completely and dealt with all the tactical communications, the Blue Force tracker, electronic warfare. So I was able to work with any of the cell phone jammers or any signal jammer over there that actually helped and saved probably quite a few lives over the course of the war, from IEDs being able to be blown up remotely. And then also working with roughly 70 computers. So.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the electronic warfare and what that involves?
A little bit. There's actually a system in the truck that there's two different types of the system. There's a proactive and a reactive system. The proactive system is a constant jam. It depending on what the location is in the country. I mean, they can jam certain frequencies. And so if somebody's trying to use a cell phone, more or less, and do a remote detonated bomb, if the convoy is driving over and the bomb's sitting right, buried underground, and they're trying to blow it up remotely through a cell phone, the system can jam the frequency, and so they're not able to actually complete the call, thus leading to saving lives. And basically doesn't allow them to destroy any of your equipment or possibly harm any Americans or any Iraqi civilians for that matter. And it's been a total lifesaver. I mean, they very rarely break. And then there's the reactive system, which looks for when a signal is detected, then it actually reacts to that signal and does the same thing. And it'll keep jamming that frequency until it goes away. So.
Do you know roughly how many IEDs, when you were over there, had been recovered from them not going off?
That I don't know. I mean, there's a possibility that we could have encountered some, but 100% sure it's hard to tell. I mean, because you may jam the frequency, and it could just be a regular cell phone that somebody was trying to use, or it could have been somebody who was actually trying to blow up, an IED or a vehicle-borne IED or whatever. And you don't know, really, to be honest.
Did you have any other duties when you were over there?
I was also the unit public affairs rep, so that's why I actually got to go out with a lot of my guys in First Platoon and actually get a lot of coverage for them in regards to once the Kirkuk Police Organized Crime Unit was standing up. I was able to get the initial build for their actual public affairs relations with different public affairs reps from the Army that actually had a lot more coverage option than I did. So,
did that involve talking to the press?
We never actually dealt with the press. A lot of it was more internal Army public affairs. So we worked very close with our brigade public affairs up in that location, and we'd take them out to the different locations that we'd go out to, whether it was a key leader engagement or the training at the Kirkuk Training Center to, get them the coverage and show them exactly what we're trying to do in Iraq. So that way people home can understand that, we're trying to make a difference over there. We're trying to be beneficial to the people of Iraq and help them build their country up even more than what it was. So.
Do you have a vivid memory from deployment that you would like to share?
Probably going out and spending a lot of time with the first platoon guys, going out to the Kirkuk Training Center for the training and sitting through the class. We initially went out there, we got to meet all the actual senior leaders at the Kirkuk Training Center. We sat down, we met the general in charge of the actual training center. He, was very open to us being there. And then he introduced us basically to all the detectives that we were going to be working with through our time there. And basically we started building the bond at that point, and being able to see how well they were, how open they were to us when they came in to work with us was actually very, very cool. They always did enjoy seeing me around because they knew I had a camera. So, they kind of enjoyed that a little bit, and they'd kind of goof off periodically, and my guys especially, they'd get a kick out of trying to get some good, funny photos with the Iraqi police over there, and then also having probably a lot of the training generals come over that were actually from the U.S. military. They would come up from Baghdad to actually see what we were doing, and being able to show them exactly what we were doing. And I know we actually got a chance to photobomb one of the generals over there. Kind of had a little fun in that. So was a good time.
How did you photobomb the general?
We tried setting it up so we'd catch him a little better than we did, but he was walking in the field, and one of my guys jumped in on the photo right in front of me and just kind of made a funny face while the general was in the back walking. So it was pretty entertaining. I mean, we had to kind of improvise because we were trying to plan it so we'd catch him when he was in a room or whatever, you know, and he'd be in the back. But he ended up being up front instead of behind everybody. So.
Do you know that happened?
I don't believe he did. I'd imagine not, but it was definitely a fun time. So.
Has that photo been posted anywhere public?
It's been on Facebook, yes. That was one of, I think, 2 or 3 generals that we ended up trying to kind of photobomb just to make make things a little more fun. I mean, it was no disrespectful to them or anything, you know. It was just we were trying to make things fun, and I think they would have got a kick out of it if they would have actually seen it. But I mean, it was our chance to get a little bit of entertainment out of it. So I mean,
do you know if they've seen it since?
They may have, but I doubt it. I mean, anything's possible, but I highly doubt it. So.
What other kind of photos did you take that were fun like that?
A lot of times we took like a lot of training events, like our guys just kind of relaxing on the fob. Whether it was they were playing football, waiting to go out on the next mission, or if we were playing, you know, frisbee or kickball or soccer or anything. I mean, anything fun that we tried to do, I tried to make sure I got plenty of the pictures, or you know, just guys getting together outside playing basketball, or just outside the living area and just hanging out. You know, we just tried to make the best of it and have fun, and we tried to capture some of those pictures to make sure we could kind of show exactly, you know, what we did and what we did in our downtime to make things a little more enjoyable.
So was taking these pictures part of your public affairs duties?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Where would those photos be sent?
A lot of times we just kept them internal. Some of them were shared with the public affairs reps over there if they needed them for the story or whatever. If I was shooting for a specific story that they were out on as well, then I'd give them my pictures as well to use. But other than that, a lot of times we kept them internal just to store for our collection of what the company did over that course of the year. And then we also used them when we published our local newsletter for our company. And we'd push that out back home and use those pictures in there as well to kind of show, you know, the families what we're doing, and that, yeah, our soldiers are doing good, and, you know, this is what we're doing to pass our time, or, you know, this is what we did today, and this is a special event, you know, that happened today. So.
Did you become close to anybody in your unit or company?
Quite a few, actually. You really grow a bond over there. One that I was specifically close to was probably Sergeant Bailey. She was one of my medics. I grew very close to her. We spent a lot of time because we both worked in an office setting, especially once we went down to Fob Warhorse, and we used to go to the gym, you know, morning and night, and you know, it was like a battle buddy team more or less. You know, we were kind of always together throughout the workday and everything, and it kind of helped both of us keep our minds off of other things, you know, what was going on back at home, you know, and it always gave us somebody to talk to. So, I mean, me and her could always talk back and forth without a problem and not have to worry about it. And then pretty much anybody in the office I grew fairly close to and got mentored not only by the people above me, you know, they took very good care of me, but also learned from some of the guys that, you know, were same rank as me because they were going on a mission. And you know, for the most part, I haven't done a military police function in almost 3 years. So they kind of, you know, they try to keep me in a loop and make sure I still, you know what's going on completely, especially since I was still covering it, you know, public affairs wise. They tried to make sure I knew what was going on out there and try to kind of help me out a little bit. So.
Would you say having those close relationships helped you through the deployment?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Made things a lot easier. Kind of took the mind off everything that was kind of at home, whether it was, you know, family, what are they doing, you know, what's going to happen when I go home, things like that. I mean, it kind of helped us just work through it together slowly. I mean, some of them had also, like, Sergeant Bailey, she had previously deployed, so she kind of knew what to expect. So she kind of helped me through it a little bit, if I was having a hard time with something or anything. She was kind of like, it'll be all right, or, just think of it, you get to go home in a couple months, you get all this time back, you get to spend it with your family and your friends, and you'll get to see them. And so, it kind of helped out, she worried about her son periodically, and, so we kind of gave each other our little motivation, and kind of helped each other through it, so.
Were you able to stay in contact with your family?
I was. We had an MWR facility that our company actually ran that was given to us that we used, and then also we had internet in each of the locations, so I was able to Skype or email back and forth, and I was able to email back and forth daily from my office anyways, but being able to Skype home did help quite a bit, so I could call home, and whether video chat or even just voice chat, be able to actually talk instead of always having to just type everything was kind of made things a little less stressful to actually hear a voice and relate that way. So.
How often were you able to Skype home?
Almost daily, unless our internet was either down or running very slow. It was almost a daily occurrence. So I didn't necessarily call home daily, but I might call somebody else, like one of my friends, or so it wasn't always the same person I was talking to. It was kind of a mix, so I kind of mixed it up a little bit. So.
What types of things did you talk to your family about while you were deployed?
You don't really want to tell them too much. Like I never told my mom a lot of stuff when I was deployed, just because I didn't want her to worry. So it was, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Things are going good. It's quiet over here. There's certain stuff you can't tell them anyways while you're over there. So, that stuff never came out. But I never wanted to worry her in the event, something did happen, or if she hadn't heard from me from a while, I'd call her and tell her, hey, I'm all right, you don't have anything to worry about, or, because she worried. It's family. They always worry when they don't hear from me for a while, and so she was more reassured when she talked to me and just kind of see how I was doing overall and make sure I was handling everything all right, or if I needed anything sent over, like cookies or anything that we wanted, and she tried to get it out to us. So.
Did you get any advice from home?
My uncle a little bit. He said take care of myself. He's like, make sure you lie on your buddies next to you. He's like, they'll help you quite a bit. My uncle was pretty open. Like I talked to him a few times throughout the deployment periodically, and he made sure he took care of my mom, kept her calm and everything, and kind of just gave advice periodically, and saw how we were doing, and tried to help with what he kind of knew from his side of it, even though it was Air Force. So.
When did you return home from your deployment?
February 2011. It was about mid-February, I think, when we got back. So.
What was your homecoming like?
Very welcoming. It was very awesome. We had a lot of USO guys when we initially flew in to Illinois, and then we drove from Illinois down, and they were very welcoming to us. And then they had refreshments and everything for us, and then we turned in all of our equipment initially when we got back, right at the airport, and to our rear detachment. And then once we got back to Fort Leonard Wood, all the families and everything were waiting in there for us. And they brought us in, gave us a big welcoming home ceremony all the way. Everybody came to see us in, and then we were there probably like 10 minutes, and they said, all right, go home. You got 4 days. Enjoy it with your family, and relax and get to know everybody, again, pretty much is what it was like, because you hadn't seen them for most part of a year. So, they just gave us time to kind of relax and unwind and spend time with family. So.
How was it having that big welcome back home?
It's kind of a sigh of relief at that point, because you knew you were home, you knew you were safe, you knew you had your family there, to see you. So, I mean, you knew it really wasn't too hard in that terms. But it was definitely very calming.
You said you had 4 days to go home and rest and relax. What did you do during your 4 days?
I spent a lot of time just kind of visiting with family, moving things into my house that we had just gotten at that point, because it's like 4-man houses for the single soldiers on post. So we started, moving my stuff into the house and kind of just relaxed more or less in the hotel and just didn't try to do anything too overwhelming, and went out to eat, watched some movies, and that's about it. Kind of called it early most nights because the time adjustment was a little rough at first. So
when you went out to eat, did you eat a lot since you probably didn't get the same food over there?
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, I was kind of guilty of it. Especially getting to eat like Ruby Tuesdays. That was probably one of the first places that we hit. That was definitely kind of nice because, I mean, the food wasn't bad over there for us. I mean, it was actually halfway decent, but it doesn't have, the spices or whatever, the flavor that it does when you actually get it from like a restaurant. So, I mean, it's a different aspect, but actually being able to sit down and have, a nice meal was wonderful.
Was there a certain or favorite food that you missed having when you were deployed?
Probably steak. I mean, we had steak over there, but it was nothing like a good home-cooked steak on a good grill. Like over there, they just, it was an open, just a regular old grill they were cooking it on, and it wasn't as good as, a nice T-bone steak or whatever back home here. So
how was that first steak back?
Oh, it was wonderful. Definitely missed it.
After you came home, did you feel like your mission was successful?
I did. When we left, I was very happy with how things went. I mean, by the time we had left, we'd already, a second platoon guys had transferred the Iraqi police training all the way back to the Iraqi police. They did the full transfer of authority from an American, more or less, run academy to a straight 100% Iraqi run. And that's when they transferred it up to the regional training center up in the Diyala province of Iraq. They actually transferred it there instead of doing it on Fob Warhorse. And that to me was a big sense of accomplishment, not only necessarily just for me, because I saw it, but for those guys that took part in it, to see them, hand it back over to the Iraqis and let them take the lead in it was definitely another story. That means they're making that next step that, they're trying to say, hey, we're ready to take over and do what we have to do. And knowing that we helped build, the Kirkuk Police Organized Crime Unit, push them through, their different ways of teaching advanced methods to investigations, that was another big thing. I mean, it gave the Iraqis a little extra from what they may not have gotten if we didn't stand something up like that. So, I mean, it was definitely a sense of accomplishment to see, once you kind of saw all that kind of start coming up, and knowing that we made at least a little bit of a difference, if anything, So it was definitely worth it.
Do you feel as though your accomplishments were appreciated here at home?
Yes. There's many times that I'd get emails from old coworkers at my old job, and they'd thank me for what we were doing, or they'd want to know, kind of, hey, what are you guys doing these days? I know you're deployed. What's kind of going on with you guys? We only see the news, but we want to know what's going on specifically with you and your guys. And there were a lot of people that were very open to making sure we were taken care of and supporting us, no matter what we needed, whether it was, just a thank you, or, in the welcome home where, the USO people were there to welcome us and, make sure we had refreshments and stuff, so.
Recently it was announced that the Iraq War will be officially ending this year. What are your thoughts on that? I
kind of think I feel when we left anyways, they were kind of getting ready to kind of take over. I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, it's kind of an interesting topic. I mean, it can go two ways. You know, it can either destabilize or it can stay stable. I mean, I hope that what we did there is enough to at least, you know, keep them stable and at least give them the direction to continue to keep growing and developing not only you know, their military or their police forces, but as a country. I mean, that's really the best we can hope for, is that what we did is enough to keep them going and that we showed them exactly what they need. So,
do you think the Iraq people are ready for that challenge?
I think for the most part, they are. I mean, everybody we dealt with was very open to us being there because they saw what we were doing. You know, we were helping them, we were training them. We weren't so much on a mission, you know, like trying to do combat or anything like that. We were there more or less strictly to help them. And that was the biggest thing with Operation New Dawn. Once we transferred over to that, was we're not in the lead. It's Iraqi led. We're just kind of there to guide them more or less. And I think once that happened, I think they were kind of starting to get ready to take over and really be the lead on it, and, you know, come to us for a little bit of help here and there. But I feel, especially Iraqi police-wise, I think they're kind of getting to the point where they don't so much need our help as much as they may have, you know, 2 years ago, or even necessarily when we were there, because that started kind of dwindling as we were there a little bit. So I think they'll be okay.
In May of this year, big news came when Osama bin Laden was captured and killed. Where were you when you heard this news?
I was actually on convalescent leave from a surgery. I just had surgery on my ankle, so I was at home relaxing, and I didn't have cable TV, but I was talking to friends back home, and they had said that it was coming across the news, and so I jumped online right away to try to figure out what the whole hype was about, and I thought that was kind of pretty cool.
What were your thoughts when you heard that?
I was definitely happy. It was kind of a sense of relief, knowing that we finally, you know, we'd been looking for him for a long time, to kind of know that he was finally captured, or, you know, not necessarily captured, but I mean, it was done. You know, we finally got who we were looking for, and, you know, it may have taken quite some time, but it was kind of just that knowing that it was done was a sigh of relief for me.
What were the different reactions on post?
Because I was on con leave, so I didn't really get to see a whole lot of it. It seemed like a lot of people were happy, though. Overall, it was kind of the general, from the few people I interacted a little bit with, they seemed like they were kind of happy that it was kind of done, and then it was over with finally.
Recently, the 4th NBB's mission is changing to a combat-oriented mission. How will this affect you?
Me specifically, not so much. We're actually about to be the last MP company on Fort Leonard Wood. So for us, and especially since we'd just gotten back from our deployment, we were starting to transition back into a law enforcement mission. So for us, it's pretty much pretty standard for us. We're just transferring over to a law enforcement, so we're going to be protecting Fort Leonard Wood. So we'll be the ones running the patrols on Fort Leonard Wood and making sure, you know, the community is secure. So for us, it's not so big right now. Down the road, once everybody starts getting back MP company-wise, it'll start growing back into, we'll start transitioning back towards a combat mission as well, and basically move forward that way and support the 4th. And we'll support the 4th MEM no matter how, you know, or what they need. If they need, you know, MPs to go out to the field with them to train, you know, because it's a full spectrum brigade. So I mean, we'll support them no matter what, but our main mission will be law enforcement for at least the next year.
After your deployment, what advice would you give someone who wants to join the military or the Army specifically?
It's a pretty good experience. I mean, you learn a lot. You really do. A lot of great job skills, especially, you know, depending on what you want to do. Like with me, the military police background, you know, it transfers over to law enforcement and the civilian side. So I mean, and being able to work in the job without having to go to college first kind of really helps. I mean, it kind of puts a lot of it into perspective. I mean, we can still go to college while we're in too, so I mean, you can kind of double dip. But I mean, you're getting that actual law enforcement experience to work through. So once you actually hit like the real world, you've already got to jump ahead of like your peers who may have just graduated from college and they're applying for the same job. You know, you can show, well, I've got this experience, you know, over this person, and you know, it helps out. And really, to make the best of it, I mean, there's always down days. There really is. It's just common. And a lot of people worry about deployments, but even those aren't as bad as, you know, a lot of people think. I mean, we got real lucky for the year we were deployed, but things are a lot calmer now than they were, you know, 10 years ago when things first kicked off. So,
how do you use your experiences from the military in your everyday life?
I pay attention to a lot of things a lot more. I pay a lot more attention to detail. A lot of the little things that you might not think of, like, you know, anywhere from making sure your clothes are squared away, you know, the night before. I mean, it's small, but it's that little bit extra, you know, make sure you're taken care of and you're setting yourself up for success for the next day. That kind of bleeds over, because it's one of the things they focus on. So, like, even if I'm on leave or vacation or anything like that, I'm still making sure that no matter what, I'm you know, making sure I got enough time to get to where I need to go, or, you know, I'm making sure everything's taken care of that I need for the next day, and I'm not kind of scrambling last minute, you know, running around and like, oh no, what do I do? I mean, you try to make sure you're taken care of all the time. You know, it's just not just as you need to. And then just being a lot more respectful and kind of helping out, you know, anybody. I mean, there's a lot of times that I've kind of gone that extra mile for some other people that I may not have done on the civilian side, you know, as little as maybe opening a door or, you know, helping somebody carry their groceries out to their car. I mean, I may not have done that on the civilian side, but, you know, I kind of try to give back a little bit here and there now that I'm, you know, got the different mentality.
Are there any important leadership lessons you have learned during your time in the military?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was mentored by, because I worked in the office, so I was mentored a lot by a lot of senior enlisted and a couple officers. They definitely taught me a lot, especially once I took over the combo shop. I was kind of lost because, you know, I was still somewhat new to the Army. I mean, I've been in for like 2.5 years by that point, but, you know, I never really had that leadership position, and they showed me and they taught me how to actually manage, basically, and work different angles to get people to work and work with you. Like, you were kind of more of a manager, and you have people that work for you to kind of help them move through and get the job done that you're trying to accomplish. And then also quite a bit with talking to people and interacting. They mentored me quite a bit on that.
Is there any way you apply that to your everyday life?
A little bit. Since I own a business on the side, I think I've kind of applied it into that a little bit to kind of make sure, you know, with my partners and everything, you know, I kind of try to take that manager role more and more now, and kind of direct the way that we're going overall with my business and everything to try and make sure we're successful overall, not just individually, but also as a whole in the company. So,
before we close, is there anything about your life and military career we haven't talked about that you would like me to know?
No, I believe that it pretty much covers most of it. So.
Well, on behalf of myself, my family, and Ball State University, I want to thank you for participating in our project and for your service to our nation.
Thank you.